So today we're going to be experimenting with alcohol ink. Happens to be on a tumbler, but it's still an experiment nonetheless. And we're trying to figure out is whether or not alcohol inks will go onto a surface that just has a paint primer on top. So let's find out. Howdy Howdy, this is Clara Lawrence. So, I have done alcohol ink successfully on tumblers before with a powder coat on them. I had a feeling that they would work really well because they're designed to go onto surfaces that are slick, such as glass and plastics and things like that. But when you offer things that are more of a porous kind of substance, such as papers, they respond a little differently. However, they do work really well on gesso panels, and the little boards that I use a lot of times, the cradle boards, have a pre-gessoed surface on them, and they're super smooth and they do really, really good. So sometimes I purchase these guys, but I would like to purchase some that were just straight stainless steel and give me a wide variety of options. In other words, I can set it up to however I want to begin with. And ideally, I would like to go from top to bottom with the alcohol inks. So I've got one here that, yeah, it's a black. It's still the same kind of substance. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this outside and I'm going to give it a couple coats of this paint and primer, let it dry really well, and then we're going to give the alcohol inks a run for their money on it and see how this behaves. And the other reason for me I'm going to go ahead and spray this white. So it's going to get a white paint and primer on there. So it's going to show us a couple things. One is if I can get this nice and opaque with white on there, with working with the alcohol inks, if that white runs off a lot, we'll see it real fast with this black underneath it because it'll show through. So I thought it might be a pretty good test. And the test works out really well whether you're using tumblers or you're just getting a piece of board out and doing a spray coat of paint and primer on top of that and just using it as flat artwork or, you know, a piece of shaped sculpture or, you know, the applications are endless at that point. So definitely worth a try. So the first step is I've got a paper towel here and I've got 91% alcohol in there, and I'm going to wipe this down really good and get it so that all the oil from my fingers and such won't be left behind and I can get a clean spray on this. Okay, first step of the process complete. I've got probably 3 to 4 light coats of white paint and primer on this, and it's a flat paint. Yeah, don't recommend going over a black cup. It took a little bit of time trying to get it to cover, and I'm hoping I got a pretty good coverage all over and it doesn't leave too much black bits showing through. So I'm going to let this thoroughly dry for a while before I continue on with my next step because I want to give it the best chance it has. But if you need to go with a white coat onto one of your cups, start with a stainless or maybe even bumping it like doing a coat of a gray and then going to a white. That might work out better. Instead of going over a nice jet black, might go through a lot more paint. So that's the next time if I had to do this, I would go for one coat of gray and then bump it down to a white. And it would probably be easier. So anyway, time to dry. All right, so this guys had a chance to dry really well. It's not tacky. So I think we are good. I accidentally dropped it, got a couple nicks, so I've touched those up. And I realized that it's got a little bit of a groove here and here, and most likely alcohol ink's going to get into that groove and travel around. So I know there's a chance for a dark rim on both locations. So with that in mind, we're going to keep on proceeding, and I'm just going to do what I normally do with pieces. I usually throw a bunch of color at it and then start manipulating. So let's get started. And I got a variety of blues here today. So we're going to get started with those guys first. And I do have some paintbrushes around, so if I want to manipulate with that a little bit. And I'm just going to work the alcohol ink like I would normally on a canvas. Just kind of see where it takes me and go from there. So right now we're just trying to get some ink color down here. And you can always pick up the colors that have dripped on the ground too, or hopefully your pad that you've got laid out, because, you know, why not? You're gonna have colors blending anyway, so might as well take advantage of it. All right. Now I've got some alcohol in these little bottles here, so it allows me to put some alcohol on here and just get started. And yes, I could put this on a turner and do this, but since I'm kind of working back and forth, I don't really want to keep bumping the power on my turner to go back and forth. So what I will do is get a brush here and occasionally go in and smooth out some colors. And yeah, I know this brush is contaminated, and that's all right, but it's contaminated with the colors I'm using. And I'm gonna go all the way to the top and all the way to the bottom. Remember, we're testing how this alcohol does on top of the primer, paint and primer here. And we want it to hold up so that way we can get full coverage. All right. Let's get some lighter areas in here just to make it more interesting. And I do have my dryer set up that if I wanted to run dryer in there, I could. Let me hit some spots here that looks like it's repelling a little bit. Sometimes alcohol ink will do that when it gets on the background. I should have gotten some paper towels out. Let's see if I can do this while still twirly. Well, I did do it. Not really a great job, but I did do it. All right. Got a really pretty blend here going on. All right, so I have another alcohol ink here that is really cool. Actually, this is bugging me a little bit. Just get some alcohol on that, start to get that at least to do a nicer blend. Okay. So this alcohol ink is called Rainbow by Malibu. And basically, it is a nice glitter. But once this sets, it stays put. You can't really reactivate it, but it will move with the alcohol while it's fluid. I'm gonna get it going like that. I'm not worried about the color lines like this. I actually think that's kind of cool. I'm gonna start drawing this from further up. And that way I'm not really moving the ink around. And it gives it a chance to dry nice and slow. We've got a few areas right up at the top here that I want to touch up. I'm looking down below. I'm actually thinking about lightening that area up a little bit. But since I've got all this blue that has dripped down, I'm just going to pick that up with my brush. And I can clean the alcohol ink off from the inside rather easily. Just gonna touch it here. Let's see if I can darken up this area a little bit. So as long as you don't scrub it, sometimes you can really build up your colors as far as making them nice and rich. All right, let me get to drying this. So I'm gonna press stop for just a moment. Sorry, I needed both hands on that. So I ended up putting a little bit of blue on the bottom there, but what I also did is got this guy a lot cleaner because I am gonna go and apply a little bit of alcohol in this zone and see if I can lighten up this area on the bottom here some. So I'm also applying it with my brush and occasionally wiping it off. So I'm pulling ink off of this. Before I dip it back into the alcohol. And I'm trying to keep this nice and wet. So that way, and go into the other area just a little bit. So that way it dries nice and has a nice blend to it. Yep. There we go. Okay. Debating whether or not to manipulate this a little bit. I think I might. Just ever so a little bit. So I've got a little bit of alcohol on the brush and I'm just gonna kind of move it around, connect it up. That way it looks a little bit more intentional instead of like a loose drip. I've got another one over here. course, I created another drip. So the colors that are down here are starting to evaporate a little bit, and you can go and apply more color, and it's already kind of on the thickened side. So it really makes this color nice and rich. And it's also got that rainbow mixed in with it, so it's nice and glittery. Let's see. Almost there. All right. I'm having to work at picking up the color. Okay, I seem to be taking off a little bit more than I wanted to take off. I don't want to do that. Sometimes this happens. But the cool thing about alcohol ink is it reactivates with alcohol. So if you don't like it, just keep on working it. So I'm going over all the areas that were kind of roughed up and not how I was happy with it. Yeah, I think we're there. Okay. All right, so this is how we look in more of a vertical situation. And I think it looks pretty good. It's kind of very oceany looking, and I was kind of going for that. So let me zoom you in a little bit. So you can see the sparkle there, and you'll get some sparkle bits all over. And these colors are a lot more in like teal, like a mermaid color, much more so than they're shown on camera. Sorry about that. It's something with blues or teals and purples. They really do shift on camera quite a bit. But this ought to work out very nice. Good beachy kind of piece. And even doing some white paste on this when you do the resin will look really nice. I held this at an angle and it really showed off the rainbow. So what I really like about that rainbow is other colors work well with it. It doesn't come off as a rainbow, like, in other words, you're not seeing all the yellow, green, orange, all those kind of colors. But the colors you're using will pick up that sparkle. So it definitely plays well with others. So anyway, I think this was a huge success. I didn't see any change in the surface whatsoever as far as doing a paint and primer on that. It held up really well. I mean, you need to touch up the bottom a little bit. So if you guys want to do a paint and primer as your alcohol ink base, or before you play with the alcohol inks, I think it works just fine. And I use, which one did I use? Hang on, I'll get it. So this is the one I got, and remember I got flat white primer, and it worked out great. Let it dry completely before you start, and I mean drying completely when you touch it, definitely it's nice and smooth. It's not tacky at all. Even if you need to spray it and leave it overnight, it's better to be safe than sorry. So that way the alcohol goes on smoothly, and if you decide to do resins shortly after that, you know you're not going to have any issues. All right. So hit that like button, hit the subscribe button, but definitely hit the bell to get notified next time I put a video up. And check the links in the description below for my Etsy store, as well as the Amazon store, where I put all the links of the supplies that I use. And I got them in nice little categories to make it easy for you guys. So check that out. I get a small commission, helps out the channel. But you don't see any raised prices in whatever you link on. So don't worry about that part. All right. There you go.